Okay, I think we'll get started then. Thank you for everyone that's joined me tonight for this first of our 4 webinars that we're running throughout April. My name's Adam Corsini and I'm the Public Engagement Officer for the Layers of London project. And tonight in this group, there's also my colleague Liam Cunningham, who is our volunteer coordinator and communications officer. So if anyone has any questions tonight, feel free to leave those in the questions and answers or on the chat, and either myself or Liam can answer those questions as we go through the webinar tonight. So what I'll do is I'll just turn off my video. In fact, just before I do that, if you haven't used Zoom before, there's 2 ways to ask questions tonight. There's a box that hopefully you can see in a drop-down menu called questions and answers, but there's also a box that should have chat. So if you do want to leave any questions, feel free to leave those in those spaces. But without further ado, it's 4:05, so let's get started. I'm just going to turn off my video and hopefully everybody can see the Layers of London's home screen. I imagine that most of you have been to the Layers of London site before, but if you haven't, it's a free site that is based in the University of London, and the URL is layersoflondon.org. And when you sign on to that site, here is the home page. The quickest way to get to the maps is by going to Get Started or the word map up here. But just before I do that, I'll just show you some of the other features of the site. There's the crowdsourcing aspects are in this section where you can add your own stories. You can do what we're going to do tonight and help make a map. And there's also an activity where you can trace around Victorian buildings in the Charles Booth poverty/wealth map. You can search for content using the tags and the search facility down here. And there's also a few highlighted collections at the bottom of the homepage here. But what I want to do tonight is go through this project that we really launched properly about a month and a half ago, and that was to georeference images taken by the RAF after the Second World War and try to create a mosaic of images that will effectively make a Google Earth of 1949 for London. And not only will you be able to search that, it's all at a high definition resolution, so we can really zoom into some of those images. And before I go through the process of the georeferencing and how you can get involved, I thought it might be interesting just to show you where we are with the project. So if I click on map, the way to bring up this RAF layer, there are 2 ways to do it. I'm just going to minimize the tray with the collections. And if we go into layer tools down here, we can hide those pins records, which are the contributions by members of the public. And we can click on choose new layers, or you can go to layers up here and it brings up our layer directory. Now, if we click on London maps, we can have a look at all the different major London maps that we've gathered together. And at the very bottom, we have the RAF aerial collection. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to upload the modern satellite image and also this RAF collection together, because I find this the most effective, which allows you to see the changes that have taken place between 1949 and today. So as we zoom in, you can see that this layer is made up of many individual images that were taken by those planes after the Second World War. We started off this project by focusing on one borough, which was Barking and Dagenham. And if I zoom in here, you can see how those images start to stitch together to create a seamless layer of London's history. So we can see how they've all been overlaid. And Layers of London allows you to turn these features on and off entirely, like so. And this area hasn't actually changed too much, but we can see how you can start to compare and contrast between now and then. I'll search for a place where which has changed. Let's just go for the borough of Harringay. And as I'm doing this live, I knew something wouldn't work, and that's the search facility here, which is taking a while. So I'm going to just switch screens and go to one I prepared earlier, where I placed the dot on the Haringey down here. And here, if I upload the modern satellite image and then overlay the RAF images, if we zoom in, we can see that the area around Finsbury Park down here, let's wait for it to upload, has undergone a few changes, and the space I was going to point out is the Haringey racetrack. So you can see how London has changed and how useful this RAF layer will be once it's complete. So I'll just turn off that modern satellite image to show you how it looks today. Is the images that have been geo-referenced by members of the public, but then have been reviewed by our reviewers team. So quite a lot of the images have been geo-referenced now, but there's still a few more to go. And overall, the RAF took around 24 individual images after World War II. Now we've reduced that to around 8,000, which still covers the entirety of Greater London. So over the past month and a half, members of the public have been placing the dots on the images and matching them up to the modern satellite to do that compare and contrast. And this is the current result, as you can see today. But what I really wanted to do tonight was show you how you can get involved and be part of this project. So that could be why. I'm just looking at some of the questions, but the reason the search didn't work was I was spelling it Haringey with an A. I'm just going to close that down for a second, sorry. Okay, so what do I mean by the process of georeferencing? Well, I'll come on to that as we go onto our Layermaker page. So let me go to our home page again and show you how you can get to the Layermaker page. On the home page, there's this space called Become a Map Maker. If I click Help Make a Map, it brings up a little summary of what this project is about. And here's a tutorial which shows you what I'm about to show you now. But to get directly to the Layermaker page from this blog, you can click on the word click here or the Layermaker page, and that will bring up this. Now, when we started the project, we separated those images into each of London's boroughs, and a lot has been done now, but there are still 6 boroughs that are left. If you click in one of those boroughs, so I'll click in Hillingdon, you can see how many have been edited so far and how many of the edited have been reviewed. And then in this space down here, you can see some of the ones that are yet to be done. So quite a few around the Heathrow area are still to be done. And by clicking on one of these, let's just click on this one here. It says add to layer now, and we click on that, and that should bring up the Layermaker page. Now, what we're looking at here on the right hand side is the original image that was taken by the RAF in between 1945 and 1949. And then we have a satellite image on the left hand side. Now you can move these images around like so. You can zoom in and out. And what I'm going to do is actually going to switch to a separate screen where I don't want to take, because we haven't got many left on the Layermaker page, I'm going to go for this one, which is one that hadn't been done very well. So I took off some of the points, and I'm about to go through how you can start to georeference. Now, the process of georeferencing is really identifying spaces and coordinates on one image and matching them up to a modern day map. And that means that that image will be overlaid onto the today's map in exactly the right space. And as I go through this process, hopefully you'll see what that looks like and how that works. So when you come to the georeferencing screen, one of the first things you want to do is to make sure that the image that was taken by the RAF is the same orientation and the same way around as the satellite image that we're looking at on the left-hand side. So it's worth bearing in mind that when the planes took these photographs, they weren't all flying north, and some were flying south, some west, some east. And in this example that I've got here, what we actually have to do is turn this image 480 degrees, because what I think I'm looking at in this triangle down here is matching this triangle up here. So if I go to the right hand side of my screen, and if I click on this change rotation mode, I'll click on that twice, we can now see that this triangle of roads and buildings looks like this one, and then we have this rounded road which matches up to this one here. So now we're in a much better position to start georeferencing the RAF image to the modern day map. Unfortunately, this map here isn't the best one to use as a base map. It's a little bit blurry, and if we zoom in, we'll see that some of the, in fact, all the buildings are really blurred, and it certainly isn't easy to match up one space to another. But the good news is that if we head over to the left-hand side of the page, there is an icon which has the world on there, and if we click on that, it allows us to change the base map. So I am now going to click on the Google Maps satellite, and we should find that we have a much better satellite image on the left-hand side, which will enable us to find corresponding buildings in both of the pictures here. Okay, so where should we place our first point? Now, the best way to georeference the images to get as much accuracy as possible is to put some points in the corners of the image as best as you can. So if I go to the corner of this triangle here, and we have this space with this building, let's see if that building still exists today. So I'll zoom in, and we have this nice triangular space here with this nice triangular space here. And it looks like this building is still in existence, although it does look like the owners have made some kind of extension. But that is not a problem. That will allow us to match these images up. And I am going to head for my RAF image and just place my mouse crosshair in the corner of that building. Now, when I do that, this circle comes up, and that allows me to move this circle around, or indeed remove it entirely. But I'm going to click on that again and go for the corner of this building, and confident that this is the same building, I will click on the corner there and then just click anywhere else, and we'll see that it comes up with a number. Now, if you're doing this fresh, the number will be 1. As I mentioned earlier, I've removed a few of the previous dots that were incorrect on this map. So this is now the 5th dot that we're looking at. But that's not too bad. It's not exactly in the corner, but it's not too far away. So let's try going down and zoom out on both images. And I'm now going to go for this area and this road here. I'll zoom in to this space, and let's zoom in to this space. Let me just double check that. Yeah. Okay, so this is a great example of how some buildings have had quite major extensions. So we need to be quite accurate in where we put our points. The other thing we could do is, if we want to go for, if we're not entirely sure about this building, if it's changed quite dramatically, we can always go for a building around it. So in fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to place my dot in this corner, and then place my second dot in this corner. And now that one's matched up. So now we have 2 dots, one on the top, one on the bottom. So let's go for the bottom left-hand corner. Like so. Now, let me just zoom out a little bit here. Oh, excuse me. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. because we haven't got the start of a road necessarily here, although there does seem to be quite a long alleyway or maybe a road in this section here. So this is where we need to start having a look at the surrounding areas and seeing if we can match anything up. Now, I am tempted to say that this line here may be this line here. If you think differently to me, I'll just zoom out again. Feel free to write in the chat or the comments. But we do want to try and match something up now, and I'll match up the first one, and then we'll see how accurate I've been here. So just looking at the surrounding golf course as well, I think this one may be corresponding with this area up here, and then this hole looks like it's this hole here. So if we zoom in and we zoom in somewhere like here, let's see if we can match up one of these. So if I go for the end of this course, which I'm hoping is the same as this space here, and if we just head down to this building, and I'll put my dot in the corner of that one, I'll head down and let's hope it's the same as this one. Now, you may have seen that the original RAF image just moved a little bit when I placed that dot there. And it's moved it quite significantly now. So this one might be wrong, but we'll find out in a moment. And what I'll do now is I will head up to my triangle of buildings up here and just zoom into where that ends and wait for my map to load. And if we zoom in a bit more, let's try and find another building where this triangle is. And I think we have a sort of building here. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for this sort of junction where this road meets this junction, this road, and just place a point here. And I think, let's see what happens if I place that dot there. See the map, or this image moved a little bit. So it's suggesting that it might be in the right place, but there might be some kind of difference. So the next thing to do is, now we place 4 points, we're in a good position to start overlaying and seeing how that looks. But you can see that this original RAF image has the borders around it, which we want to remove. So if we click on this clip button here, it brings up this screen, which allows us to move and drag these corners in like so. And we can go quite far in because there is a fair amount of overlap between one image and another when they finally all come together as that huge mosaic. So we've come quite a bit in now. We can also zoom into this picture to make sure that we haven't got any borders left. And on some images, I don't think this is one, oh, here we are. On some images like this one here, there may be some writing that we don't want to be part of the image that we geo-reference. So I'm going to make sure that I'm clipping that bit out and cutting that out here. Okay, just zoom out a little bit. Now here's the test then. We'll click on the overlay to see how well our image is matched up. And it's not terrible. So we can see that this road links up pretty well. This one links up pretty well. As we come over here, our road on Ballard's Way and Ballard's Farm Road also match up. It could be slightly better, but it's not terrible. And oh, let's hope this map loads. Let me just reset this. Overlay, here we go. We can check these roads at the bottom as well once it loads. This is always the fun aspect of doing projects live. Here we go, it's finally loaded. So we can see that this road matches up quite nicely. There seems to be a little bit of a discrepancy here though. And the next thing to check is the fade in, fade out. So there's a bar at the top right-hand corner, which allows us to do that. And we can see something isn't right because although the road on the right-hand side matches up, things seem to have moved quite a bit with that Farley Road next to it. So what I think may have happened is that either that has changed throughout time or one of our dots down here isn't exactly correct. And that's the case with this one here. Because we can see that this upper Selsdon Road isn't linking in quite right. So what I'll do is I'll remove that by clicking on that dot and then deleting this control point. And immediately it's improved this road over here. And it's made this slightly better, but now it enables us to try and figure out where we went wrong in this corner. So if I just zoom in a little more, we can note that if I fade this in and out, this pathway that I thought was here doesn't seem to match up exactly. And let's try and find a space that we are confident about matching up. And what I might actually do is have a look at this golf course and see how that has changed. If there's any other features. Let's see one of these houses again. Okay, I'm going to go for, which one should I go for? I think maybe this house here possibly matches up with this house here. So let me go side by side again. And we have this house here, which I'll just place my dot on as a reminder. And now you see it's making a suggestion as to which house this one is. So let me just push this up because I think it might be this one. And let's overlay that and then let's see what this results in. Okay. So we're still a little bit off. So it will require me to play around with it a little bit more. But what I might also do is just add a dot that's in the center of the picture too. So let's go side by side again. And let's go for this house. And I'll just move that over to here, like so. And overlay that. We'll check to see how that's overlaid. And that one's not looking too bad. It's a little bit off, but it's certainly getting there. Has that changed this down here? Again, we're a little bit off, so it needs a bit more of a play around. But that isn't too bad, especially in the top part of the screen, like so. And that is basically the process of georeferencing. So what we can also do is check this coordinate space, and it tells us which of our points are accurate and if there are any that have major errors. So interestingly, the last one we placed seems to have the error here. So let's just go overlaying it again. I think if we were to change and add a few more dots, we would get a better position on this one here because it would move it slightly again. But I'm going to leave that there for the moment. Hopefully everyone can see how you can georeference and the way of placing these dots and trying to match up these pictures. The georeferencing.com site saves these maps automatically. So although there is a save button down here, you don't need to click on it, it will automatically save. When you georeference, you won't be able to see this space which says approve now. Only reviewers will see that space, but you can simply skip to the next one and continue with the next image to georeference. So if I go back to the Layermaker whoops, the Layermaker page. Let me go back here. Just a reminder, it's layerslondon.org/layermaker, and these are the boroughs that have images still to be georeferenced. We've been overwhelmed by the response to this project, and many images have been georeferenced already. So that's really great, but unfortunately there aren't that many to do. So if you do want to have a go, I recommend having a go sooner rather than later. But it's not all bad news, because there are many projects that include this georeferencing activity. And I just wanted to show you this site, which is the britishlibrary.georeferencer.com, and here you can have a play with lots of different maps within the British Library's collections, which go through exactly the same process of having a look at an image of a map and then mapping that to today's world atlas and satellite. So there's still time to have a go at our Layermaker page and contribute to this RAF layer. But if you find that this inspires you to continue doing this type of work, then please do visit the britishlibrary.georeferencer.com as well. So I'll leave this webinar open for anyone that has any questions. Feel free to write those in the questions and answers now or in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer those. Okay, so the first question is, how many points are needed on each RAF map? So there needs to be at least a minimum of 4. Ideally, you want to try and get a point in each of those corners, but admittedly, it is more difficult for some of the Greater London images, which in most instances just contain fields. So the best way to do it is to try and get those initial 4 in the corners, but otherwise try and get the 4 on any spaces that you can find. Aim for buildings, aim for bridges over brooks and streams and canals and that kind of thing. I would also recommend going for junctions in roads, but rather than placing your dot in the middle of the road, go for a corner where that junction literally hits the other road on the pavement, because then it will be much more accurate when the final image is georeferenced altogether. So another question is how we go about doing the reviewing and the verifying and doing the quality checks of what's being georeferenced. Now there are a team of reviewers, so I'll just go back to oops, this page, where is it? This page here. Now, as a reviewer, what we see is what you can see on the screen now, which is the image overlaid on the satellite image with the points that a member of the public has placed. I'll give you an example of what I view when I'm reviewing. So I have to click on this map here, but then I can overlay it. And this is actually not a bad one. We can see that it starts to match up pretty well. Let me see if I can find one that needs a bit of work. Yeah, so as a reviewer, what I might find is that people have georeferenced their points, but they've forgotten to clip around the borders. So as a reviewer, I would need to clip those borders and check to see if that overlay is correct. I may need to add a few more or just reposition a few of these. It's more often the case where things are done correctly, but if I do need to move things around, I just need to move them just a very small space to just make it slightly more accurate. if there's any more questions, feel free to ask in the questions and answers or the chat, or if there's anything else about Layers of London that you're interested in and would like to ask, again, you can feel free to ask those questions in the question answers or chat. So there's a question about, does it have the facility to note places of interest that may now not exist? The layer itself doesn't, but what can be done is if we go to the Layers of London's main site, and I'll go back to, which page do I have it on? Well, I'll go back to here, still searching. Let's go in and see if we can find something that has changed. So maybe I'll go out to this bar over here and wait for it to load up. So if we fade this one in and out, we can see that in this space there might be a few more, there might be housing now that didn't exist when these images were taken. If that is, let's say hypothetically, there's a new estate there or a shopping mall or something like that, and someone wanted to write a comment on that, or the example that I gave earlier of the Haringey Arena, which no longer exists, you could create a record by going to the navigation panel over here and adding a record, placing that on the space where that point of interest is, and then writing a record, and in the description of that record referring to the RAF layer where you can see that bird's eye view of it. So that's the way to make a reference to any places of interest. Unfortunately, you can't tag a specific layer or a specific map. There's a question about what other projects we're currently engaged with in Layers of London. So let me just click on our homepage. There are a few active collections projects that we've got at the moment. If I scroll down to here, if anyone's interested in recording London's pubs, there's a link to that in the Get Involved pages down here. If anyone's has school children, we have a project for school pupils about the history of my school, and more information can be found here. There are also other volunteer opportunities which come up every now and again. They're advertised usually on our news and events pages. But the other main crowdsourcing activity that people can get involved in relates to the Charles Booth Victoria map. I'll see how long this takes to upload. But you can find this under layersoflondon.org map tools, and it takes a while to just bring up. But the idea for this one is for each of the buildings that were color coded by Booth in the late Victorian period, we want to trace around those buildings. Let me zoom in. To trace around those buildings and create 7 separate layers that relate to each of the poverty and wealth bands in Victorian London. I probably haven't got time to demonstrate that now, but there is another webinar which is at the end of the month. I think it's on the 30th of April, Thursday the 30th of April. So if you're interested in finding out more about that project, then please sign up for that one on the Institute of Historical Research's events pages. That also answers another question that we've had, which is, will we be holding further workshops like this? So yeah, that one's coming up on the 30th of April. On the 16th of April, these are all Thursdays, 16th of April, we're running a workshop which will simply explore Layers of London and some of the different layers that we have. And then on the Thursday in between, I think it might be the 23rd, we're running a webinar which will discuss how you can add your own content to the site and create collections and reveal a little bit about London's history that others may not be aware of. So those are the workshops coming up. You can book onto those under the IHR's events pages, and hopefully that answers those questions. I think what I might do then, if there's no more questions, I might say one final thanks to all of you that attended today. I hope you found that interesting, and I hope that that's inspired you to have a little play now and have a go at the Layermaker itself. Just to show you again how to get to that Layermaker page from our home page. Just scroll down, it says become a map maker, click on help make a map, and then you can click on, you can either read a little bit more about the process or click on Layermaker page, and then away you go. So there are a few more in each of these boroughs. If I just show you Croydon, I think there's a couple left to do here, or there is one. They're going fast, but there's one to do in Croydon. There's definitely a few in Hillingdon around Heathrow area. Havering has a few as well. And make sure when you're on these pages, just zoom out, because sometimes there's a few hidden above as well. And also there's all the other maps on the British Library's website as well. So, so there we go. Thank you very much for attending, and we've recorded this webinar, so that will be available via our Layers of London website as well, hopefully tomorrow or by next week. And if there's anything else, you can always contact the Layers team by going to the Contact Us pages, where you can find our email address, layersoflondon@london.ac.uk. So, so thank you once again. Stay safe. I hope everyone's okay as we're in lockdown, and I hope you all enjoy playing with Layers of London. Thank you very much.